A cry in the void. Reed Carter wasn't looking for trouble. He just wanted to finish one more salvage run, get paid, and disappear into some quiet system where no one knew his name. But deep in Sector 9K, trouble found him. The warning lights blinked red as his scanner picked up a faint distress signal. It was old, maybe weeks, maybe months. The signal was weak, almost broken. But it kept repeating the same 3 words in galactic common: help. Child, alive. He should have ignored it. That's what any smart pilot would have done. But Reed's hands moved on their own, adjusting the course, locking on to the source. He'd lost his own daughter during the Mars riots, and even now, years later, that pain still burned in his chest like a dying star. Maybe that's why he couldn't look away 20 minutes later. His ship, the Valkyrie, floated near a broken alien pod. It was twisted, covered in deep burns, and floating lifeless in the void, but the life signs were clear. One small signature. Faint, but still there. Reed grabbed his helmet and entered the airlock. The pod's hatch creaked open slowly with a hiss of frozen gas. Inside, it was dark and cold, and the air smelled like burning metal and old blood. He moved his flashlight around and then froze. In the corner, wrapped in a metallic blanket, sat a small alien girl. Her skin shimmered with a soft purple glow. Covered in faint glowing lines, she was no older than 8, maybe 9, with large dark eyes and hair like silver thread. She was shaking, breathing fast, but not from fear. She looked tired, empty, almost ready to give up. Reed knelt slowly, raising both hands. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. She didn't move, just stared. Then, with a trembling voice, she whispered something in galactic common. "Will you be my father?" Reed blinked. For a second, he thought he'd misheard her, but her eyes locked onto his, so full of fear, yet somehow full of hope. She wasn't asking for help. She was asking for family. He felt something sharp stab his heart. A memory too painful to name. Still kneeling, he whispered back, I can take you somewhere safe." She shook her head slowly. "They will find me. They always do. But if I have a father, they can't take me." Reed didn't understand what she meant, but the desperation in her voice was real. He reached out his hand. "Come on. Let's get you out of here." She stared at his hand, then slowly reached out and took it. Her fingers were cold, trembling, but her grip was stronger than a child's should be. As he helped her to her feet, he noticed a thin band of symbols glowing faintly on her arm. It looked like royal markings. Reed had seen similar things during the Galactic Wars back on the Valkyrie. The II scanned her quietly. No match in the public database, but heavy encryption surrounded her. DNA profile. Reed frowned. "What are you hiding, little one?" he whispered to himself. She sat in silence, eyes scanning the dark corners of the ship. He brought her some warm protein broth and wrapped her in a blanket. Still, she said very little, only watching him as if she was waiting for something, maybe for him to leave, or maybe to betray her. "Do you have a name?" Reed asked softly. She shook her head. "They took it from me. When they took my mother." Something cold ran down Reed's spine. Who were they? And why did this child speak like a fugitive? Just then, the ship's warning systems beeped. A signal had been triggered. Someone else had picked up the same distress signal. Another ship was approaching. Fast, no ID, no response. Reed looked at the girl. "Are they after you?" he asked. She didn't answer, but the way she wrapped her arms around herself said everything. Reed stood quickly, turning off the beacon and setting the Valkyrie into silent drift mode. Whoever was coming, he wasn't ready to hand her over. Not until he knew the truth. She looked up at him again, her voice soft but steady this time. "You can leave me here. They'll only chase you too." Reed stared at her for a moment, then knelt down, resting a hand on her shoulder. "No, He said, "You asked me to be your father. And I don't walk away from family." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was something else. For the first time since the crash, the alien girl felt safe and read Carter. He'd just stepped into a fight much bigger than he could imagine. But he didn't care anymore, because she had whispered the one word he'd never thought he'd hear again. Father. Asterisk, the girl didn't speak much. She followed Reed around the ship silently, her silver hair swaying gently, her dark eyes always watching. She never asked questions, never touched anything, and never smiled. Reed noticed something strange. She never slept. He pretended to rest, peeking through the cockpit monitor at night. She just sat near the window, staring out into the stars, still, motionless, like she was waiting for something. Or someone. Reed had seen broken kids before, especially during the war. But this was different. She wasn't just scared. She was hiding something deep inside, something too big for a child. After 2 days in quiet drift mode, Reed decided to talk. He brought her warm food again, but this time he didn't leave right away. He sat beside her and gently asked, "So, can I call you something? A name?" She stared at the bowl, then shook her head slowly. "No name," she whispered. "They said I don't deserve one." Reed felt a tight knot in his chest. "What about a nickname? Something just between us?" "Ah," he asked softly. She looked up, blinking slowly. "Name is dangerous." He nodded slowly, trying not to push her. "Okay," he said. "Then I'll call you Star. For now." "Why Star?" She asked quietly. "Because you came from the dark and still shine," Reed said with a small smile. That night, she didn't sit alone at the window. She sat beside him instead. The next day, Reed ran another scan, hoping to trace her species, her origin, anything, but the data returned nothing. No public record, no race match, no known biological markers in the open system. Whoever she was, someone had erased her from the galaxy. Still, her DNA wasn't blanket, was encrypted. That was rare and dangerous. Only royal bloodlines, war fugitives, or military experiments had encryption in their blood. Suddenly, the cockpit alarm beeped. A small drone had passed nearby, the same kind used by bounty hunters and slave catchers. Reed's pulse quickened. Had they already found her? He rushed to the living quarters. "Star, we need to move." She looked up calmly. "They are close," she whispered. Reed paused. "How do you know?" She touched the side of her head. "I hear them. Words. Just." Hunger. Reed didn't know what that meant, but he didn't wait to find out. He kicked the Valkyrie into hyperburn mode and veered toward the Epsilon cloud. It was risky. High radiation, low visibility, but the best place to hide from trackers. As the ship entered the dense cloud, everything turned red and gold outside the windows. Static buzzed through the coms, and the ship groaned under the pressure. Star stood near the pilot seat, her small fingers gripping the side panel. Her eyes were focused, not afraid. Reed glanced at her. "You've flown through these before, haven't you?" She gave a slight nod. "Many times, but not with someone who stayed." Later, Reed checked the encrypted DNA code again, this time running it through an old military decryptor he had stored in the backup systems. Slowly, a result came through. Just one name, subject, KO1 status, classified owner, Galactic House of Virenride, froze. The House of Viren had ruled an empire before it collapsed during the Mutiny Wars. They were known for power, science, and cruelty. KO1 wasn't a child's name. It was a lab number. Reed leaned back, running a hand through his hair. Was she royalty? A test subject? A weapon? When he returned to her, Star was sitting at the window again. "You're from the house of Viren," he said carefully. She didn't react. "They made you in a lab?" he asked. After a long silence, she whispered, My mother said I was born to save them. But when they lost, they tried to destroy me too. Reed crouched down beside her. Why? Because I was proof, she said, her voice barely above a breath. Proof of what? That they failed. She looked at him, her eyes full of quiet pain. I am not supposed to exist, she said. That's why they're still chasing me. Reed didn't know what to say, so he sat beside her again, staring into the stars. After a long silence, she whispered, "You should let me go, Father." He looked at her. Surprised, "You don't owe me anything," she said. "You didn't make me. You didn't lose me. You can still live." Reed shook his head slowly. "You asked me to be your father," he said. "And I said yes. I won't run from that." For the first time, her lips trembled. Not from fear, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The Valkyrie drifted quietly above the shattered remains of planet Delos Prime. Nothing lived there now, just floating rock and dust. But Reed wasn't here for treasure or supplies. He was here for answers. Delos Prime was one of the last known strongholds of the House of Iron before the Empire fell. Maybe, just maybe, someone here had left behind a clue about what KO-1 really was. What Star truly was. She stood beside him in the cockpit, staring at the burning ruins below. "I remember this place," said softly. "You've been here before?" Reed asked, surprised. She nodded slowly. "They brought me here. Once, long ago." Reed landed the ship near the edge of a collapsed research station. The doors were half buried, the walls cracked and twisted. But the scanner showed a weak power source deep inside. They walked together through the wreckage. Reed held a blaster, and Star, though just a child, walked without fear. She knew this place too well. Inside, the walls were scorched with blast marks. There'd been a battle here. Maybe years ago, security drones lay shattered on the ground, and the air was thick with silence. They reached a sealed lab, still powered. Locked by a voice ID, Star stepped forward. Her voice calm. "KO-1. Access request." The door blinked green and slid open. Reed looked at her, shocked. "You remember the codes?" She nodded. "They never changed them. They didn't think I'd come back." Inside the lab, dusty data cores lined the walls. Reed wiped one clean and activated it. An old hologram blinked to life, a man in a Royal Viren uniform. "This is Lord Viren," the message began. "KO-1 is our final hope, our last creation. She is not a weapon, she is a shield. She carries the cure to the toxin that destroyed our own people. But she also carries the key to something greater." Reed frowned, listening carefully. "She's not just a child," the man continued. "She's the last of our bloodline. And if she lives, so does our name." The hologram ended with a sharp beep, and the room fell silent again. Reed turned to her. "Your royalty," he said softly. Star said nothing, her face unreadable, but her hands were clenched, tight, and shaking. Suddenly, the station's lights flickered, and an alarm screamed through the halls. Motion alerts, someone else had arrived. Reed grabbed Star's hand and pulled her back toward the ship. "Did you call for help?" he asked. "No," she whispered, "but they always follow, outside the base." 3 sleek ships had landed silently, dark gray with no markings, bounty hunter class. Reed recognized the design elite trackers hired by old royal families. "Warlords, and worse, stay behind me," Reed said, raising his blaster. The ship's ramp was just ahead, but 2 armed figures stepped in front of them, their faces hidden behind chrome masks. One of them spoke through a voice modulator. "Hand over the girl, and you may live." Reed didn't move. "She's under my protection, she is not yours." The voice hissed, "She belongs to the bloodline." Star stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the cold air. "I am the bloodline," she said. "You don't own me." The hunters paused, clearly surprised. Then, without warning, they opened fire. Blaster bolts screamed across the rocks, lighting up the shadows. Reed ducked behind a steel beam, returning fire, while Star crouched beside him. One shot nearly hit her. But at the last second, something stopped at midair. Reed saw it just for a second. The energy bolt froze, surrounded by a faint shimmer, then vanished. He looked at her, wide-eyed. "You did that?" Star stared at her hands, confused and a little scared. "I didn't mean to." "It just happened." Reed grinned. "Remind me never to make you angry." Together, they made it back to the Valkyrie. And Reed hit full thrusters, blasting off the surface. The enemy ships followed. But the radiation storm near the planet gave them just enough cover to escape. Later, in orbit, Reed checked her vitals again. Her energy readings were off the charts, not just alien, but unstable, powerful. "She's not just a cure," he whispered to himself. "She's something else." He walked to the small living bay, where Star was curled in her blanket, eyes closed, but she wasn't asleep. "I heard what the message said," she whispered without opening her eyes. "I am the last of them. But I don't want to be what they made me." Reed sat beside her, his voice low. "You don't have to be," he said. "You can choose who you want to become." She opened her eyes slowly, looking up at him. "And if I choose to just be your daughter?" she asked. Reed smiled gently, reaching out to hold her hand. "Then that's all you'll ever need to be." But deep in space, somewhere far away, a cold figure watched the data feed from the bounty ships. He smiled cruelly and whispered to himself, "Let them run. The Empire always reclaims its own." The Valkyrie was running low on fuel, and Reed knew they couldn't stay in open space much longer. He needed parts, clean fuel, food, and maybe, just maybe, a place to think. And there was only one place left where no one asked questions: Dagger's Nest, an outlaw station hidden inside an asteroid belt, too old for official charts, too dangerous for patrols. But Reed had an old friend there, someone who owed him a favor. Cale Wren, ex-smuggler, now information broker. "I don't trust him," Star said quietly as they approached the docking ring. Reed glanced at her. "He's helped me before." "He smells like betrayal," she replied calmly. Without emotion, Reed gave a weak smile. "You can smell betrayal now." She nodded. "It's thick in this place." Cale was waiting at the airlock, tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Reed Carter," he said, arms open wide, still dragging space junk across the stars. Reed smirked, still hiding in asteroid caves. They shook hands like old friends, but Star never moved from behind Reed's side. Cale noticed her. "And who's the little ghost?" "None of your business," Reed said quickly. "I just need refuel parts and low-level stealth plates." Cale raised an eyebrow. "Running from someone, are we?" Reed's tone turned cold. "Just help me, Cale." Inside the station, shadows clung to every corner. Old alien tech and black market goods lined the walls. But it was quiet, too quiet. Star walked slowly, touching nothing, eyes darting at every whisper and blinking light in Cale's back room. Reed waited as the engineer prepared the parts. Star sat in the corner, arms wrapped around her knees. Cale leaned close, voice low. "So who is she really?" Reed narrowed his eyes. "I told you none of your business." Cale smiled. "She's not just a stowaway. That girl's got heat on her." Reed didn't reply, but his fingers slowly moved toward the blaster on his belt. Back in the hallway, Star looked up suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're coming." Reed stood up. "What?" "3 ships, fast military design," she said, eyes glowing faintly. "They're here for me." Cale raised both hands, backing away slowly. "Now hold on. I didn't call anyone," but Reed had already drawn his weapon. "Did you?" "Ping a bounty network, Cale." You stupid. I didn't. Cale shouted, panicked. Maybe someone traced your jump path. The station lights went dark, then turned red. An alert rang out, external docking unauthorized breach. Chaos erupted. Reed grabbed Star's hand. We're getting out of here. But she stopped him, eyes wide. It's a trap. Cale blocked their path. Reed, listen, if they're after her, give her up. They'll leave you alone. Reed's voice dropped low, cold as space. Move, or I'll put you down. Cale hesitated, then stepped aside. They raced down the hallways as gunfire echoed behind them. Hunter drones swarmed the station, scanning every corner. Star pulled Reed to a side door. Wait, trust me. They entered a narrow shaft leading to a hidden maintenance corridor. How do you know this path? Reed asked. I don't, she said, but something tells me where to go. At the far end, they reached a sealed exit hatch. Beyond it is single-person smuggler shuttle, small, but just enough to reach the Valkyrie's docked position. Reed turned to Star. You fly it? She blinked. I've never flown a ship. You've got royal blood, and you've stopped lasers with your mind oil. Figure it out. She stared at the controls, hands trembling. Reed squeezed her shoulder. You've got this. The shuttle roared to life, and they launched from the hidden port just as the enemy ships locked onto the station. Explosions lit up the asteroid field behind them. Reed guided the Valkyrie's remote doors open, and Star flew straight in perfect landing, back aboard. The Valkyrie Reed sealed the doors and jumped the ship to lightspeed. They sat in silence for a long time, just breathing. Finally, Star spoke. You could have left me. Reed looked at her, but I didn't. Why? Because I don't leave family behind, he said softly. She stared at him for a moment, her voice shaky. Then I won't leave you either. Outside, space stretched endlessly. But for now, they had each other, and somewhere far behind them, Cale Rin sat alone in his damaged station, whispering into a hidden comm. They're still alive, he said, and the girl's powers are waking up. A cold voice answered, good. Let them run a little longer. The stars outside the Valkyrie passed slowly now. Reed had powered down the main drive, letting the ship coast through a quiet, empty stretch of unclaimed space. It was safer here, no trackers, no transmissions, no threats, just silence. But inside the ship, something had changed. The girl once known only as K01 was now someone else, someone learning how to live, not just survive. She still hadn't chosen a name, but she had started to laugh just a little. Reed taught her the basics of ship life, how to cook from ration packs, how to run safety checks, and how to patch small hull leaks. She learned fast, faster than any human child. But she still flinched at loud noises, and she still slept with her boots on, like she might need to run any second. One day, while cleaning an old storage panel, Reed found a small Toyen Earth-made music box shaped like a fox. It was dusty, but still worked. When opened, it played a soft, broken lullaby, a tune his real daughter once loved. He left it on the table for her to find. When she saw it, she turned the crank and listened carefully. Then she whispered, was this hers? Reed nodded slowly. Yeah. She closed the box gently and held it close. She must have been brave. Reed's voice cracked. She was. Later that night, the girl set the box beside her pillow. And for the first time since she boarded the Valkyrie, she slept peacefully. Days passed, and the distance between them shrank. Reed started calling her kid, and sometimes Starling. She still didn't talk much about her past, but when she smiled at him, truly smiled, Reed felt something inside begin to heal. One morning, she walked into the cockpit wearing a flight harness 3 sizes too big and said, teach me to fly. Reed grinned. Really? She nodded, serious as ever. If we get separated, I need to know how to find you again. So he did. He started with the basics: gravity balance, thruster control, how to read nav charts. At first, her hands shook, but by the end of the week, she was docking the ship in practice mode, better than Reed ever did on his first try. But peace never lasts long in the stars. The AI beeped an alert. An encrypted transmission had just bounced off the hull. Reed pulled it up, frowning. It was a message from Earth's outer diplomatic channel. Reed Carter restored. Human vessel ID 7A3U are ordered to deliver subject KO1 to secure custody under galactic unity protection. Failure to comply will be considered obstruction. Reed cursed under his breath. They found us, he muttered. Star stood at the door, silent, but her hands were clenched. They won't help me, she said quietly. They'll study me. Like the others, Reed stared at the message again, then at her. Do you trust me? He asked. She nodded slowly. Then we're not handing you over. They jumped to a nearby moon with a dense jungle atmosphere's secret drop site. Used during the war, there, hidden under thick trees and old wreckage, was an emergency storage crate filled with old clothes, survival gear, and a hidden Ida forger. Reed began building a new identity for her, a fake name, a new biosignature, a clean life. Do you want to choose your own name? He asked as he typed. She stared at the screen, then slowly typed. Lyra. Reed smiled. Lyra, it is. Back on the Valkyrie, she practiced writing her name again and again. Each time with more care, more confidence. Reed watched her, thinking of how far she'd come since that day in the escape pod. Later, while working on the control panel, he heard her behind him. She touched his arm gently and whispered, "Thank you." For not walking away, he turned to her. Surprised, she looked nervous, like she had been thinking about it for a long time. Then she said something that made his breath catch. "You don't have to call me your daughter, but I want to call you my father." Reed swallowed hard. You sure? She nodded. I've never had one. Not a real one. Until now. He pulled her into a gentle hug, careful not to scare her, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. The stars outside the window blinked slowly, like they were watching something sacred unfold, but far away, beyond 6 star systems, a shadowed figure received a silent signal. The girl's new name, Lyra, had just been entered into a restricted registry, and the system had flagged her. DNA match in under 5 seconds. The figure smiled, eyes glowing faint red. So, the little star has chosen a name. Good. Now I know where to find her. Asterisk. Lyra was getting stronger. She could now fly the Valkyrie through asteroid fields without blinking. She could read ship systems faster than Reed, but there was one thing she couldn't escape: the people hunting her were still out there, and now they had found her again. It started with a signal, a strange broadcast that hacked into the ship's nav screen mid-flight. The stars disappeared, replaced by a cold, flickering Physa, pale alien, wearing a dark robe with glowing red eyes. Reed Carter, the voice echoed. Low and smooth. You are harboring what does not belong to you. Reed's stiffened hand. Ready at the controls, Lyra stepped into the room, staring at the screen. I belong to no one, she said calmly. The figure tilted its head. You carry something inside you that belongs to the old empire. Then it smiled, slow and cruel. But we are not without mercy, it continued. Deliver the girl to the coordinates we've sent, and we will let you live. The screen blinked out, and silence filled the room. Only the stars remained. Reed turned to Lyra. We're not going. But Lyra looked down, thinking hard. What if they're right? She whispered, what if I really am dangerous? You're not, Reed said quickly. You're a kid who's had her life stolen. That's all. She looked at him, tears threatening to fall. I don't want you to die because of me. He placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. Then trust me not to. They needed answers, and fast. Reed knew one place that might help: Sentinel Black. An old satellite once used by rebel scientists during the war. Now abandoned, if it still had power, it might contain the records. They needed to understand what was truly inside Lyra. They docked carefully, and the place groaned like a dying beast. Dust floated in zero gravity. Old screens flickered, and every step echoed like thunder. They reached the central archive. Reed powered it up and accessed the encrypted medical records. What he found made his skin go cold. Lyra wasn't just designed to carry a cure for the Virene's toxin. She carried a living nanocore in her blood, a hidden system meant to rewrite DNA in any species it touched. It was the final plan of a dying empire: infect their enemies and control them from within. It's a weapon, Reed whispered, staring at the code. Lyra stood behind him, reading the screen silently. "I didn't ask for this," she said, voice cracking. "I know," Reed said, "and I'm still not giving you up." Just then, a sharp thump. Alarm rang through the satellite proximity alert. 3 enemy ships appeared outside. "Already docking, we're out of time," Reed said, grabbing Lyra's hand, but before they could move, a strange pulse of energy hit the satellite TMP. Shock-killing lights and gravity, they floated in darkness, spinning slowly. Then footsteps echoed, magnetic boots, getting closer. The same figure from the broadcast stepped into the chamber, this time in person, red eyes glowing, voice as smooth as poison. "We don't have to fight," he said, floating closer. "Let her come willingly, and you can go free." Reed raised his blaster, but the figure didn't flinch. "She'll be safe with us." The man continued, looking at Lyra. "You won't have to run anymore. You'll be protected. You'll understand your purpose." Lyra looked at Reed, fear in her eyes, but something else too: confusion. They were offering answers. Safety, even a future. "Don't listen to him," Reed said sharply. "You're not a tool, Lyra. You're not a weapon. You're just a girl who deserves a life." The figure smiled. She was born to serve something greater. "You're the one stopping her." Lyra floated between them, unsure. The red lights reflected in her eyes. "Do I really have a choice?" she asked softly. Reed reached out, his voice low and full of emotion. "You do now." There was silence. Then Lyra closed her eyes, and her skin began to glow faint blue. Energy crackled around her fingers, wild, uncontrolled. "I'm not yours," she said quietly. "I'm not anyone's." With one sudden pulse, she released a wave of force that blasted the enemy backward. The shock fried the satellite systems, and Reed grabbed her tightly, jetting them back toward the Valkyrie. In the chaos, they launched seconds later, leaving the burning satellite behind. Reed stared at her in the co-pilot seat, breathing hard. She was shaking, trying not to cry. "I didn't mean to use it. I just got scared," she whispered. Reed looked at her and said firmly, "You protected yourself. That's not a weapon. That's survival." She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, "Even if I'm part machine, even if I'm not human, you're still my father, right?" Reed didn't even blink. "I always will be." Asterisk, but deep in the wreckage of the satellite, the enemy figure crawled from the rubble. Damaged but alive, he touched a small device on his chest and whispered, "She's beginning to unlock it. The core is waking up." The Valkyrie limped through deep space, engines flickering and hull scorched. Reed patched the ship the best he could. But they were running out of time and options. The enemy was still hunting them, and Lyra's powers were growing faster than either of them understood. Every time she slept, the ship's sensors picked up strange energy waves pulsing from her body. At first, it was harmless, just static or glitches. But now, metal warped near her. Screens flickered. Gravity shifted. She was changing. And even she couldn't control it. Reed watched her from the cockpit as she sat curled on the floor with the old fox-shaped music box. Shh. She looked smaller than usual. Quieter, he sat down beside her. "How are you holding up?" She didn't answer right away, then said, "I'm scared I'll hurt you." "You won't," he said gently. "I already did," she whispered. "That last pulsate could have killed someone." "But it didn't," he replied. "You stopped him. You saved us." Her hands trembled. "What if next time I lose control?" Reed looked her in the eyes. "Then I'll be there to pull you back, even if I become something else," she asked. He didn't hesitate, even then, that night. A message broke through the static. A contact code read, "Never expected to see a Dearth Central Defense." The highest level human command channel. He opened the line cautiously. An officer appeared, gray uniform, serious eyes. "Reed Carter, we've been tracking you." The girl Iris broadcasting energy signatures far beyond safe levels. "I know," Reed said, jaw tight. "She's not dangerous. She's scared." The officer leaned forward. "We can help her. We have the labs, the tech, the scientists. Bring her to Earth orbit. We'll take it from there." Reed's blood ran cold. "Take it?" he asked slowly. "She's not a device. She's a child." "She's both," the officer said, "and she's becoming unstable. If you really care about her, surrender her now." Reed turned off the screen and sat in silence. Lyra stepped into the room. "Was that Earth?" He nodded slowly. "They want to contain me, don't they?" He looked at her, his voice low. "They say it's for your protection." Lyra didn't speak for a moment, then whispered, "I don't want to be protected. I want to live." Reed made a decision, one he never thought he'd make. There was one last path, one final jump to a secret human science colony deep beyond the mapped systems. It was called Sanctuary 9, a place built for refugees, where people lived off-grid, protected by ancient AI walls and coded skies. If they could reach it, no one, not even Earth Central, could track her again, but it required a blind jump through a collapsing wormhole. No guarantees, no second chances. Reed stared at the coordinates on the screen, then at Lyra. "Do you trust me?" She nodded without hesitation. "Then hold on tight." The wormhole was unstable, swirling with fractured gravity and lightning storms. As the ship entered, the hull screamed. Lights flashed, and everything shook like it would rip apart. Reed gripped the controls, trying to keep the ship centered. Lyra sat beside him, eyes glowing faintly. "I can feel it," she whispered. "The jump, it's tearing space. But I can help." She reached out, hands hovering over the console. The ship's systems began to stabilize with her energy. She was guiding the vessel like it was part of her. The light grew brighter, brighter, until it all went black. Silence, then a beep, then another. The Valkyrie drifted slowly through a calm blue sky above a lush green world. No signals, no alerts, no enemies. Just peace. They had made it. Reed let out a long breath as the ship landed softly on a metal pad surrounded by tall alien trees. Sanctuary 9 had accepted their entry code. No questions asked. It was over. Days passed quietly. Lyra smiled more now, played with local kids, helped engineers repair drones. Her powers were stable, still present, but no longer wild. She had learned to balance. She had learned to be, and Reed had learned to be a father again. One afternoon, while fixing a broken panel in their new home, Reed heard soft footsteps behind him. Lyra walked in holding a small datapad she made at school. It said, "My name is Lyra. I was made in a lab, hunted by empires, and filled with something powerful, but I am not a weapon. I am a daughter." She looked up at him, smiling. "Do you like it?" Reed couldn't speak for a second. Then he pulled her into a hug, whispering, "I don't just like it, kid. I love it, and far away on the edge of a dying empire, someone stared at a dark screen, waiting for the little girl with the weaponized blood to return. But she never would, because she wasn't their tool anymore. She was family, and she had found her place among the stars.